This meal was prepared by an actual professional chef. It was taste tested on the ground. It passed quality checks. It had the right seasoning, the right ingredients. So why does it taste like absolutely nothing? The answer isn't in the kitchen. It's in your brain and the physics of the metal tube you're sitting in. By the end of this video, you'll understand something most people never think about, that everything you taste is a construction. And at 35,000 feet, your brain is working with broken equipment. Let's start with cabin pressure and taste biology. Commercial aircraft cabins are pressurized, but not to sea level pressure. They're pressurized to the equivalent of about 6,000 to 8,000 feet altitude. Now, that doesn't sound dramatic, but here's what it does to your biology. At that reduced pressure, fluids in your body behave slightly differently. Your sinus cavities, the air pockets in your skull, expand slightly, and the mucous membranes in your nose and throat dry out. Remember that, the drying out part. We're coming back to it. But first, the pressure itself. A landmark 2010 study commissioned by Lufthansa and conducted by the Fraunhofer Institute, Germany, tested the sensory perception of over 100 subjects in a pressurized aircraft simulator. The results were remarkable. At simulated cruising altitude, sensitivity to sweet tastes dropped by 15 to 20%. Sensitivity to salty tastes dropped by 20 to 30%. Perception of umami means savoriness remained relatively stable. This is why airline meals need significantly more salt and sugar added before they taste normal to a passenger, compared to the exact same meal eaten on the ground. The food hasn't changed. Your tongue becomes less sensitive. Now we get to the real villain. And it's not pressure, it's moisture. A typical indoor environment has humidity of around 40 to 60%. Your nose evolved to work in that range. Inside a cruising aircraft cabin, humidity drops to between 10 and 20%, sometimes lower. That's drier than the Sahara Desert. And here's why that destroys your food experience. Taste and smell are not separate senses, they're a unified system. Scientists call it flavor perception. When you eat, your food releases volatile aromatic compounds. These float up through the back of your mouth, through a passage called the retronasal pathway, and reach your olfactory receptors. That's where most of what you call taste actually happens, in your nose. In fact, neuroscientists at Yale Medical School found that approximately 80% of what we perceive as taste is actually smell. Now here's the problem. When the mucous membranes in your nose dry out from low cabin humidity, your olfactory receptors lose sensitivity. The aromatic molecules from your food can't properly reach them. The signal gets scrambled. You're essentially eating with your nose 80% blocked. That juicy steak? Your nose is reading it as lukewarm protein and salt, and you blame the chef. Here's one of the most fascinating facts in all of food science. On the ground, tomato juice is the 7th most ordered drink in Germany. On Lufthansa flights, it's one of the most ordered drink. Every year, Lufthansa serves over 1.8 million liters of tomato juice, and passengers consistently say it tastes great in the air. How is that possible when everything else tastes worse? Two reasons. First, tomato juice is loaded with glutamates, the compounds responsible for umami. And remember from earlier, umami perception barely drops at altitude. So the savory depth of tomato juice comes through loud and clear when everything else is muted. Second, tomato juice has a complex, almost aggressive flavor profile. High acidity, earthiness, bitterness. These are flavor dimensions that don't rely solely on salt and sweet sensitivity, the two most impaired senses at altitude. Tomato juice is basically the perfect altitude drink. It was always delicious at 35,000 feet. Your taste buds just couldn't handle it on the ground. Now here's a finding that still sounds like it shouldn't be real, even to the researchers who discovered it. Sound affects taste. Experiments led by Charles Spence at University of Oxford found that loud background noise affects how we experience food. High background noise, similar to aircraft cabin noise at around 85 decibels, significantly reduced participants' perception of sweetness and saltiness, but it actually enhanced the perception of crunchiness. This is why airline pretzels and crackers seem to have flavor. The ambient noise is making the texture more vivid while muting everything else. A cruising aircraft produces around 85 decibels of continuous background noise, like sitting next to constant heavy traffic an entire time you eat. So while your taste is being muted, your brain is being distracted. Pressure, dryness, noise. Three separate biological mechanisms, all working simultaneously to sabotage every meal you eat at altitude. The food industry calls this the sensory challenge of the skies. Airlines spend millions trying to engineer around it, and most passengers just assume the chef is bad. So what do airlines do with this knowledge? The smart ones engineer their menus specifically for altitude chemistry. Singapore Airlines employs a team of food scientists, Michelin-starred chefs, and a sensory analysis laboratory where meals are tested in altitude-simulating pressure chambers before they go on any flight. Lufthansa adds around 30% more seasoning to in-flight meals compared to their ground-tested versions. Qantas uses higher concentrations of umami-forward ingredients, mushrooms, aged cheeses, fermented sauces, because umami is the one taste that survives the altitude assault. And some airlines are now experimenting with aroma diffusers in the cabin to artificially add back the volatile compounds that the dry air strips from food. So next time you're on a plane and the food tastes disappointing, remember this. It's not the chef. It's not the recipe. It's your biology, struggling inside an environment it was never designed for. Same food, different physics.
Here is your meal.
And once you understand that, you'll never taste airplane food the same way again.
You're welcome. Enjoy.
If you found this interesting, subscribe and keep watching.